Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a draw preview for the Monte Carlo Rolex Masters. My name is Anthony Hirsch and welcome to the tennis commentary booth. So really, the preparation for this event has been pretty insane. I mean, we've gotten loads of withdrawals. I mean, the first big news was, well, really it was 3 on the same day. We got Rafa Nadal out, who's obviously the big guy at this event. He won 8 in a row. Long time ago, but he's dominated all of these clay events, obviously. Then we have Auger-Aliassime, who really impressed me on the clay last year. Not just against Nadal at the French Open, but I was impressed by him against Djokovic in Rome. I thought he was playing a really good ball on the dirt. When his game is on, I feel like he can play pretty well in any conditions or surfaces. I mean, faster is better, but he can play pretty well on the clay too, so it was a big hit for the tournament. And then just to list some of these other withdrawals off as well, Shapovalov, Paul, Nishioka, Monfils, Korda, PCB, which is Carreno Busta. I mean, we got a lot of guys out, all big hits for the tournament. That's not even mentioning the big one, which is Carlos Alcaraz. Everybody was looking to see what his form would be on the clay, and now we're not going to be able to see it until probably Madrid, which is another big title that he needs to defend. So he's not going to be as match fit on the clay as some of these other guys probably. And what's really crazy is that we got 3 of them at the same time. We had Nadal, Alcaraz, and FA all out within 30 minutes. It was such a short time. But anyway, tournament's out. We've got the draw out. It's an insane draw. I mean, I think it's a fun draw for sure. Sinner and Djokovic are playing in the quarters, and that's an insane quarterfinal. I mean, I've been hyped up to see what Djokovic and Sinner is going to look like on the other surfaces, particularly since that Wimbledon match, and now we're going to see it. We also have Ruud versus Medvedev, Rublev versus Ruud, Taylor Fritz versus the Greek Stefanos Tsitsipas, and it's very interesting. I mean, Medvedev, in my opinion, has a tough draw. He's got Sonego in the second round. Sonego is playing a fantastic ball in Miami. Then he's got Zverev potentially in the third. And then potentially Rune in the quarterfinals or Cam Norrie. And then Djokovic in the semifinals. And then obviously whoever comes out from the other side. But it's going to be tough for Medvedev. I'm especially worried about that early Sonego matchup. Because Sonego was looking just fearless in Miami. And he can be really tough against those top guys, so he's somebody to watch out for sure. I mean, besides from him, I'd say Djokovic has a pretty good draw aside from Sinner, who he would have to play in the quarterfinals, and I would probably say the same for Sinner. I'm not raising any alarm bells for Hurkacz, who, albeit can play well on clay, but he's no top guy on clay at all. I mean, who did he just lose to this week? I think Zapata Miralles, who is also a good clay player, and I'll get to him in a second. But he's not going to be that big of a matchup for Sinner's Hubie Hurkacz. As for Djokovic, McDonald, Nakashima shouldn't be issues if Djokovic is anywhere near himself. And then I'm guessing in the third round, Kecmanovic, if he beats Musetti. Musetti is not in form at all right now. But yeah, anyway, I'd like to go through this draw a little bit deeper. And speak more in depth, but that's kind of Djokovic's draw. I'm not seeing any big issues with him at the top. Hurkacz versus Gera is interesting. Gera is a big clay guy. Hurkacz is not a big clay guy, but Hurkacz, obviously, his tier of play is higher in general. Then we have Baez versus Draper. I'm not sure what to think about that. I haven't seen Draper play on clay that much, to be honest. I haven't seen Jack Draper play on the dirt all that much. And then Schwartzman and Goffin. Schwartzman's not in great form. Goffin is also not in great form. But yeah, I'm really not seeing much trouble there for Djokovic or for Sinner, honestly. Baez is a guy who I think is very talented. Anybody who can play with his height at the top level of tennis and still succeed to his extent is kind of amazing. Kind of Schwartzman-esque, also with the flag that he owns. So there's a few interesting guys in that top section, but really it's Djokovic versus Sinner all the way. That's the story of the top section, and if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to be straight up. I'm going to say that that's the story of the event. I hate to say it that way, but I think that they're the two guys that everybody should be kind of afraid of, if I'm honest with you, particularly since Tsitsipas seems like his health is a little bit hindered right now. And then we got Sonego versus a qualifier. Not sure who that quali is going to be. Batista Agut versus Yamir. Yamir is going off an injury, I think, in Miami or Indian Wells, one of the two. RBA is not in form, though. Whoever comes out of that, I'm not expecting them to look strong. Bublik's not in form. If Zverev is anywhere near himself, which he wasn't against Taro Daniel, but if Zverev is anywhere near his best, he should get through that, and we should see him playing Medvedev in the third round. And then continuing to go down this draw, we have Norrie versus Francisco Cerundolo, which I think is going to be a really great clay match. Norrie is weird. I have no idea what to expect from him because he played a horrendous quarterfinal match against Tiafoe at Indian Wells. It was awful. He just didn't show up. And then, but he played great on clay. I don't see why he can't show up with that again. Lost in first round of Miami to Barrera. Very weird form recently, or very recently, but great clay player. So, gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Then Cressy versus Berrettini. It's not gonna be pretty. And then we have Gasquet versus Thiem, which is two of the best one-handers of the last, of the century. So, of all the names there, I'm curious how Norrie is going to show up. Berrettini is not an interest to me right now with his form. Anybody who's watched any of his recent matches should agree with me on that, in my opinion. And then, yeah, I don't know. I think that Medvedev, Zverev are honestly big favorites in this one if Zverev can find any form. And Rune is interesting as well. I'll give it to Rune. But I think it's a pretty open section, to be honest. I would say that is an open section. I don't think anybody who comes through that is going to be big dangers to the field. But I think that it's a big opportunity for all of those guys at least to make it to the semifinals. Moving on. Then we have Rublev, Rublev's quarter. Rublev and Ruud. I mean, we have guys like Rublev, Ruud, Rune. I mean, all top 10 guys. It's just for tennis commentary's sake, it's not great. We need at least one of them to change their surname. But then we have Huesler, Munar. I love Munar. I've been very high on him. I'm just waiting for him to make it to at least a quarterfinal at one of the big clay events. I don't know if it's going to be here. He's going to make it at some point. Not very aggressive, doesn't go for winners, probably not the most dangerous guy, but with the right draw, I can see it. I don't know if it's this year, but at some point. He's going to make a quarterfinal or a semifinal and have a huge showing. But don't see him troubling Rublev. Rublev's very solid and consistent in terms of winning. And getting to the later stages. Not as much against top guys, but that's for later. And then you have Evans versus a qualifier. You have Fokina versus Kachanov, which is horrible. There are two matchups spanning the whole event that stuck out to me when I saw this draw. Quarterfinal matchup, Sinner Djokovic. And first round matchup, Fokina Kachanov. If you remember last year, Fokina made the finals at Monte Carlo. This is not a good draw for him. Kachanov's been in great form, a dominant form. He made semis of U.S. Open. He made semis of Australian Open. He made the semifinals of Miami last week. Lost to Medvedev in 3 sets. So. And he's good on clay. From what I remember, I'm pretty sure he's good on clay. I mean, let me look at his results real quick at some of the bigger clay events. He's made a quarterfinal of a French Open. Let's see. Hasn't had great results. Really very subpar at the clay Masters events compared to all the other Masters. Hasn't made a quarterfinal. Hasn't made a fourth round. Okay, I'm going to take that to note. But in terms of the Fokina matchup, Fokina was injured today in his match that happened earlier today. Serious injury. He called a medical timeout 3 or 4 times. And look, I think Davidovich Fokina has the talent. He has the athleticism. I'm not as sure about him being very solid against the top guys consistently enough. He's shown he has the will to make it to the latter stages of big events, but I'm not as certain that he's going to be able to do it consistently versus the top guys. And Khachanov right now, he's playing like a top guy. He's getting close to the Paris form that he found in 2018 when he took the title against Djokovic. And then we have the Demon versus Andy Murray, which is not sure it's going to be the prettiest match, if I'm going to be completely honest with you and keep it 100, but I'm excited to see it anyway. I think Murray can be a great clay player. Demonor, not as certain that he's effective enough on the clay, but great defender. Never know. Then Ramos Vignolas. Honestly, I kind of like Ramos Vignolas to make it to the third round. I don't think always the golden swing players are those that are going to be the ones making it to the later stages in these events, but I take him. Speed it up a little bit here. I think Van de Zandschulp Ruud is going to be really fun. I think Van de Zandschulp Ruud was a great match over in Miami. Very interesting match, like very interesting, and for a multitude of reasons, really. Looked like Ruud was getting back to his regular form, or at least to a good level. But then things started to go downhill. For one, Botic just stayed in it. I mean, he stayed with it that whole match. And he played really solid, really great backhand swings. From what I recall, just really solid, consistent, and he just let Ruud make the errors. I remember the second set they won ended on a super long rally, and that really defined the match. I mean, he was just staying with it to the end, and he barely made it through the second set, but it was all the doing of Van de Zandschulp. And then the third set was really a mix of both. Van Zandschulp stayed in it tough, but Ruud with zero confidence. I mean, he was making horrible errors and choices in the most important tight moments. So I'm curious about that and seeing if Ruud can do better now on the dirt and seeing if Ruud can get back to his regular form, because I really think Casper Ruud is an underrated watch. He's not the flashiest player, but like those who get to see him in person, they can say he's incredibly talented. He can hit shots that just about like nobody else can hit. He's very effective, very high tennis IQ. And he has a great forehand that's just like ridiculous. Like he's like right-handed Rafa. So anyway, I don't know who I like getting through this section. Depends a lot on Ruud, but I would take either Rublev or Khachanov. And I might take Rublev or Khachanov for the final. And I'll tell you why. This bottom section is Fritz, then Wawrinka versus Griekspoor. Griekspoor with an excellent start to the season, 13-5. And I believe his losses are to Alcaraz, Rublev, Sinner, Tsitsipas, and one other guy. It's a top guy. It's leaving me now. But it's only been top 10 guys. So he's somebody to watch for sure, because he hasn't lost to anybody anywhere near his ranking. That's going to be a good one with Wawrinka. And then Shelton Dimitrov. That should be interesting. Ben Shelton hasn't played many clay matches. Then we have Lehechka Tiafoe. That should be interesting, but I'm not sure if Lehechka's firepower will translate to the clay as well, as he's been doing on hard courts, and I think Tiafoe is an underrated clay courter. Then Coric versus Jarry. And Jarry is 10-2 on the season. One of those losses being to Carlos Alcaraz in 3 sets. So it's a good matchup for him. Coric is going to be dangerous for Coric. And I think Coric is going to go back to his form. I kind of think he overachieved a little bit on his comeback in Cincinnati. And I don't mean he didn't deserve that win. He has all the talent to win events like that. But I think that he's still on the comeback trying to get more solid. But I think he's going to find it this year. And in fact, I think he's going to find it on the clay. But it's such a tough first opponent that I think it might just be too much for Coric. I think there's an upset there. And then we have Bonzi versus Zapata Miralles. Tsitsipas' draw can really go either way. And I say it like this. Tsitsipas looked better in Miami than he did in Indian Wells. At Indian Wells, at the BNP Paribas Open, he wasn't even playing at a top 50 level. Honestly, at Miami, he was playing much better, and that's great because I love watching Tsitsipas on the clay. I think he's fantastic on the clay, especially at Roland Garros. That's the best tennis I've seen from him. And I think the slow surface really gives him time on the backhand, and he doesn't have to rush that shot. Zapata Miralles could be a tough test early, just a solid clay quarter, forces Tsitsipas early to play his best. Has to play better than Indian Wells. With Miami form, he could get it done. And then also Jari is a solid clay quarter, or Borna Coric, who is notoriously a bad matchup for Tsitsipas. I believe he has like a 2-1 or 3-1 head-to-head even against Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas getting his first win at the United Cup this year. I think Dimitrov is an interesting name. I think he's kind of actually been in good form, just come up against some tough opponents. I liked what I saw against Struff last week. I've liked what I've seen from him at Monte Carlo. And here's what I say about Tsitsipas. This is not a bad draw, but it depends on him, because he has the shoulder problem, and his form has not been there. If he's playing well, he should win. If he's playing subpar, then this could be tough, because two things make it tough when you're playing subpar. Tough matchups, because you're coming against guys that can play very well against your game when it's at its best, let alone when it's at its worst, or subpar at least. And then you have guys who are solid, like Zapata Miralles and Nicolas Jarry. And they're going to really test Tsitsipas. So, no, it's not a bad draw. In fact, the whole bottom section is way, how would I say it? It's stacked at the top. The top section is the section where you don't want to be. So Tsitsipas has a good section, a good half, but he also has guys that are going to make him need to play at a higher level than he's been playing. And I think he can show up with it on the clay at Monte Carlo, where he's won twice before. He's the 2-time champion. Last person to win than him is Fabio Fognini in 2019 in that miracle run. Although Fabio's great on the clay, always think. He doesn't play to his potential. So yeah, let me go through the sections and what my kind of predictions are now that I've gone through all of it. All of like the first round matchups. Like I said, I like Djokovic versus Sinner. And then I'm gonna go on a bit of a what do you call it? I'm gonna take a risk here. I think Sonego is going to beat Medvedev in the second round, because Medvedev generally does well on surfaces he's not so good at when he has some match play in. For him to play Sonego, who's a great clay quarter in his first round, is really a nightmare. And then you have on the other side you have Nori, Runa, Francisco Cerundolo maybe. I'm going to say Nori is going to play better tennis, and, well, no, I'm going to say Runa. I'm going to say, because Runa is pretty solid, generally. I just don't like him going all the way against top guys. His game's complete. I'm not sure it peaks as much as some of the other guys right now, like Carlos Alcaraz or Jannik Sinner. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that, it's going to be Sonego versus Runa in the quarters, and I think Runa is going to make a semifinal. And then going on to Section 3, I think that, like I said earlier, I like Rublev making it through. I also think Ruud is going to maybe a little bit scrape through, but I think he's going to find his best form yet on the season and get a little bit of form going in the clay. I think it's going to be Ruud versus Rublev, again, with the names, and then Rublev getting the best of him. Ruud is playing a great ball, suddenly. I mean, during this draw preview, I saw that he just beat Sebastian Baez 6-3, 6-0 today. He was down 3-3, love 30, and yet he came back. So that's a great win for him. I think, though, that he has a 2-4 record against Rublev. They played in Monte Carlo, actually, 2 years ago. Rublev won in straight sets. I think Rublev plays great in Monte Carlo. And I think Ruud struggles sometimes versus the big hitters, versus the top players. And I think he's going to struggle here. He just got his form back to make another to make another semifinal right away, off of so many second rounds, third rounds. That'd be tough. So, especially at a Masters. So I'm taking Rublev for the win here. I recall Rublev also has beaten Nadal at Monte Carlo. He plays well here. So I kind of like him to get through. In fact, let me look at Rublev's Monte Carlo results real quick to see if I'm correct on that. Yeah, he's made the final of Monte Carlo 2021. That was the first year that Tsitsipas won. He can play a good ball here. So I like Rublev to make that section for sure. Yeah, I don't really like any of those guys at the top enough to not pick Tsitsipas at Monte Carlo, knowing his results over the last years. Such a tough out here, loves the clay here. Even somehow managed a miracle win against Schwartzman last year when it seemed impossible after blowing a lead. So he's just like refusing to lose here. It doesn't matter if his shoulder's hurt, doesn't matter if he's not winning matches. He's going to get it done in Monte Carlo. So I like him here in Monte Carlo. Yeah, and then Fritz, too good of a matchup for Tiafoe. Also made quarters last year. I'm going to say he defends quarterfinal points. I think Tsitsipas beats Fritz in the quarterfinals. I think Fritz is a great player, great ball striker, great mentality. But I'm just not sure that his firepower and pace on the courts do well like they need to. Similarly to Medvedev, I just feel like his pace doesn't really work on the courts, and his game needs it. And I feel like his movement is not there. Fritz's movement for the clay. He doesn't really have the ability to grind out long rallies, and I feel like Tsitsipas has all of those things in spades, especially in Monte Carlo. So I'm taking Tsitsipas over Fritz, and then Tsitsipas versus Rublev is a tough one. I don't know why I'm pushing Tsitsipas to the final. I know past results don't always equal current results because current form is a real thing. But I'm not huge on Rublev's form either. I mean, he made the final in Dubai, but he was really scraping through a lot of tight matches. Wasn't huge on him in the Sunshine Double. So I don't know. I just have a feeling about Tsitsipas that he's going to pick it up a bit and also feel good about his draw. So I'm going to put Tsitsipas through to the final. And then we have Sinner versus Djokovic. Okay, so I'm just going to be straight with you here. Jannik Sinner is my current favorite player on the tour. I think his athleticism is fantastic. I love his hard forehands. His backhands are equally monstrous. I think he has a great mindset. Hasn't gone quite all the way in some of the big matches, let alone still being only 21 years old. But he's starting to get there. Beat Tsitsipas in Rotterdam. Beat Fritz, top 5 in Indian Wells. Beat Alcaraz last week. So I think he can get it done. Djokovic's early opponents aren't going to prepare him for Sinner. They don't have the firepower of Sinner. I mean, who has the firepower of Sinner? Nakashima or McDonald? No. Musetti? No. Kecmanovic? No. I mean, none of these guys have firepower that are going to really test Djokovic and prepare him. Also, Sinner's been playing on slow courts. He's been playing. Djokovic hasn't been playing. So all signs should lead to me picking Sinner. But for whatever reason, I can't quite get over the line. I think Djokovic is incredible on clay, one of the best clay quarters of all time. Just got trapped in the worst era to be playing, but top 3 clay quarter ever, in my opinion. Rafa, the number 1, of course. But, yeah, man, I don't know. I think Djokovic wins in an epic. I think Sinner has another heartbreaker, even after a good run at the Sunshine Double. I think Djokovic wins like 6-4, 7-5, or 7-6 in the third. That's my prediction with that one. I can't tell you exactly why, just that it's Djokovic and that he's too solid. And I want to pick Sinner, and I can easily imagine him winning. In fact, I was going to pick him winning, and then I thought about it and was honest with myself. And as much as I like Sinner, I kind of think Djokovic is going to scrape through. But listen, Jannik Sinner, when he's confident, when he's aggressive, even on clay, he's fantastic. When he's using the whole court, when he's using variety, it makes for a great watch. If he's confident and if he takes it to Djokovic, if Djokovic isn't prepared, Sinner's high on match play, then it's going to be a test for Djokovic. It's going to be a test for Sinner. I'm excited for that one. And I hope Sinner comes through. I'm picking Djokovic. And then Djokovic versus Rune. I'm taking Djokovic. And I think Rune and Djokovic is interesting, but I don't see the Paris final repeating here. I think Rune is good enough to reach a semifinal right now. But if Djokovic is playing well enough to beat Sinner on the clay, then I'm not seeing him get past Djokovic. I think that Djokovic's game is just as complete as Rune's, but is way more effective, way more consistent. Even mentally, he's more consistent in putting up a good mental performance. And I just think his peaks are higher across the board, so I'm going Djokovic. You just can't go against Djokovic, and on a clay court, Djokovic is very tough. There's no ins or outs about it. Let's see. And then you have Djokovic versus Tsitsipas, and I think Djokovic wins in not easy straight sets, but in straight sets. I think it's going to be like 6-3, 7-5 or something. Not too complicated for Novak. So I think Djokovic wins another Monte Carlo. I think he comes back and is winning right away. Not entirely dissimilar from Alcaraz at Indian Wells, where he kind of came back just playing incredible. I think Djokovic is going to win. But that Sinner match is going to be a real test. I'm excited. I think this is going to be a weird and wacky tournament. A lot of interesting matchups. Legitimately, I think there's a lot of opportunity. Really, the top section is like ridiculously stacked. Outside of that, there's really tons of opportunity. I mean, I think Rublev is dangerous here. I think Kachanov is dangerous. Ruud, if he can get back into form. Fritz is always a guy who I like, competes super well, great mentality. Tsitsipas is great if he's healthy and in form. Rune is great. Medvedev, you never know. Semi's Monte Carlo. Clay God Medi. Medi's great. For me, the winner of Djokovic Sinner wins the event, and I'm taking Djokovic, and that kind of explains the whole event. But I'm excited. This starts out the clay season. This is the first one I've done of these. In fact, this is the first video on the channel. Hoping to do other stuff, live streams, whatever. Hopefully live streams. We'll see exactly what I do, but I definitely want to do more of these and stats videos, just analysis. And yeah, it should be great. I'm excited. First clay event of the season, Monte Carlo. It's a great clay event. Never really know what to expect. It always comes with chaos. 2019, what was it? Medvedev gets to the semifinals. First breakthrough tournament. Beats Tsitsipas and Djokovic back-to-back. Fognini beats Lajovic in the final. Lajovic beats Medi. I mean, 2021, 2022, Tsitsipas wins both events. We had Tsitsipas Schwartzman, which I mentioned earlier. Always comes with some sort of chaos every year. At Fokina last year in the final. Nightmare this time for him with the injury and with a dangerous Karen Khachanov, who's in resurgent form. So, let's see. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting, and I'm ready for a great clay season. Let's get all the players healthy. All right. I'm Anthony Hirsch. This has been the Tennis Commentary Booth, and thank you for watching.